Hey, y'all, I'm Shane Sams. Thanks for listening to my podcast. Man, I'm super excited to bring you another amazing person, some expert, author, entrepreneur, somebody who is doing life at a very high level so you can learn from them and you can take your life to the next level as well. And, you know, I interview a lot of people on the show, guys. I interview a lot of my friends. I interview a lot of people, authors, people I've just never met before, just people I look up to, mentors. Man, it is a great privilege to be able to talk to some amazing people right here on the podcast. But this person that I'm interviewing today is very, very special to me and very, very special to my wife, Jocelyn, and to our family. Her name is Erin Pheil. She runs a business called MindFix Group. And what she specializes in is helping high achievers, entrepreneurs, people that don't have a victim mentality. She's going to talk a little bit about that. But people who are out there trying to do life at a very high level, get unstuck and overcome false beliefs and overcome things that are holding them back and crushing them and keeping them from going to the next level with mind work. Erin has developed a business where she helps people take false beliefs or beliefs that are holding them back and release them and let them go so that they can move forward. And we found Erin a couple years ago. My wife, Jocelyn, was really, really struggling mentally, really struggling with some depression. We've talked about this before over on the Flipped Lifestyle podcast. You know, Jocelyn and I became successful as online entrepreneurs very fast. We used to be school teachers. We launched an online business. We started making more money than we ever imagined possible, started getting a lot of attention out in the marketplace. And we were even able to sell a company for over $1 million. And after that event, when we should have been riding at the highest point of our life, our world began to shrink. Jocelyn mourned that business like a loss of a child. We struggled with emotions. We had conflict in our marriage, and it just kept getting worse and worse to the point where Jocelyn was actually having physical pain. And even though we were holding everything together, it really felt like life was kind of falling apart. We tried everything. We tried doctors. We tried psychologists. We tried psychiatrists. We tried medicine. We tried this. We tried that. Nothing was working. And then we found MindFix Group. Jocelyn went through Erin Pheil's program, and within 12 weeks, it was like a new human being. As we've continued to do the work, we have both realized that we had a massive amount of baggage and junk and trauma and childhood experiences and deep psychological programming that were really hurting us and holding us back in life. So when Erin talks about the MindFix program, she talks about releasing false beliefs. She talks about making more progress than 20 years of therapy that you're going to hear on this interview today. Let me assure you, we have seen it happen in our life. We have seen literal miracles over the last year and a half since we met Erin Pheil. And I cannot wait to introduce you to her today on the podcast. On today's podcast, Erin is going to show you how the perception of events, not the events themselves, actually create your reality. And if you can change the way you perceive things, you will change the quality of your life for the better. Erin is going to help us understand the sources and the reasons and the causes for these false beliefs in our life that are holding us back. And Erin is going to show you what's on the other side when you finally deal with this trauma, finally do the work, finally deal with these false beliefs, how you can get to a place where you feel like you are living life again. I'm so excited to bring you this podcast today. I know it's going to have a great impact on you and your future. So wherever you're listening, pour yourself a cup of coffee or a mason jar of sweet tea, get out a pen and paper and take some notes and enjoy my interview with Erin Pheil. 3, 2, 1. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
I'm so excited about this podcast. I've been trying to wait by this all day long, and our schedules would not cooperate. now we get to hang out with the rest of the world together. Isn't that amazing?
Hey, I love it.
So I'm gonna turn it over to you for a second. Tell everybody a little bit, real quick, about who Erin is and what she does and where you're at, and then we will go down the rabbit hole of Erin Pheil.
Okay. Where I'm at, I'm quite a literal person. So when you're like, where am I at? I'm like, well, I'm in a town called Dillon, Colorado, which is up near 10,000 feet. It's up in the mountains above Denver, literally overlooking a beautiful lake. So that's where I'm at the moment. It's a place I currently call home and have for a while. About me, I'm usually, if I'm not working, I'm usually mountain biking or I'm snowboarding. And then the rest of my life is usually focused on being able to help other people. And that's kind of what I do for my work.
And I have to brag on you before we go any farther, because, a couple years ago, my wife Jocelyn was like going through some serious like stuff. I mean, stuff that we had never anticipated having to deal with. I think as 9-to-5 workers, we were just kind of going about our life. When we became entrepreneurs, CEO level type people, like mindset stuff really got in the way. Like the mind overwhelmed us. We had some experiences where some great experiences where we sold a company, we made a ton of money, we did all these things. And we just did not see the other side of that there could ever be depression or junk of all this stuff that came up, from our younger life or current life or whatever. And we struggled, Erin, for a couple years. And then we found MindFix and we found you. And we learned about this whole new world of crushing false beliefs and getting them out of your head, and like how you can literally, with a snap of a fingers, I mean, it's not easy. You got to do the work. But I'm saying there is a moment where, poof, you snap your fingers and the false belief or the thing evaporates. And that's what you do for people. Mm-hmm. And I just want to tell everybody, like, this is not just I heard about Erin and I want to interview her on my podcast. This is a living, breathing, you and I are friends, and Jocelyn is friends, and we love you. And I wanted to share you with my podcast audience for what you do. So
thank you.
You don't get to be humble here on the Shane Sam Show. That does not happen. So tell me, I'd like to go back. I mean, I don't know this part of your story, right? Jocelyn definitely knows your story better than I do. But like, tell me what led to MindFix. Were you always someone who, like, were you a psychologist? Were you a counselor? Was this what you dreamed of growing up? Or like, tell me what brought you down that road that ended up with MindFix. I don't know that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, Jocelyn and I are a lot alike in terms of like our Colby indexes, and we're both planners and we like to plan things out and have things structured and organized. And when people ask me this question, the first response is, I did not plan this. I could not have planned this. I never envisioned this in a million years. It was a difficult, stressful, painful route to get to where I'm at today. And it was an absolute surprise. So I actually, I had an interest in psychology from a young age, took psychology in high school, ended up getting my undergraduate degree in psychology, and thought I was going to go into psychology and be a psychologist, when I was around 20 or something. And my parents were like, I graduated super early, and they're like, why don't you take some time off before you go and get like your PhD? You can't even drink yet. They're like, right. calm down. I'm like, more school. And what I ended up doing is I took a year or two off, and it was around the .com boom. And I was so fascinated by technology and art and creativity and psychology. I was like, if I combine these, I could do these really cool things called websites. And I'm really excited about the psychology behind that. So I ended up getting a master's in digital media, and was so oblivious, was never a natural entrepreneur, never in a million years thought, like, just wasn't. My dad ran a business, but I finished grad school and I was like, well, now everybody's going to want to hire me because I've got this master's degree. So people are going to be knocking down the door for me. Right. And so I moved to the mountains so that I could snowboard, of course, because that has been such a big part of my life. And there, at the time in the area, there were 3 web agencies. And I went to each of them going, oh, they're going to be falling over themselves wanting me to work because I've got this degree. And all 3 of them were like, we're like one-man shows. Go away, And
your degree means nothing here.
I was like, wait, what?
Go away.
Wait, you don't want to hire me? How is this possible? I'm amazing.
That's like the opposite too. Like, where we get that? Like, I remember when I was about to graduate and there was one of those Discover card tables where they were giving away a t-shirt. You got a free t-shirt if you get a Discover card. And that was the dude's exact pitch to me was, yo, get this card, man. You're going to are you a senior? Oh, bro, you're going to have a job. Everyone's going to hire you. Mm-hmm. You can pay this off. Go do whatever you want with it. And I just was like, sure, buddy, that's a pretty t-shirt. And like we're sold that, man, that if you just do this, then if you just do X, Y will happen. And that is not how the world works at all.
Mm-mm. And I found that out the hard way. So it was one of these things where I was like, well, if no one's going to hire me, I guess I'm going to do this on my own. So I started a web company, and the very first thing I did is I sent out postcards to everybody in the area, and my web agency was born. And so that's what I ended up doing for the next 16, 17 years is
I knew that a little bit about that, but you did that 16 years?
Yeah, I'm actually just winding it down now. Like I'm still like we still have a handful of clients closing it up.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been 18, 19 years. Yeah. 19 years around it.
That is amazing. So can you code HTML?
I can code HTML.
Are you serious? So not only are you, this is why you can decode my brain so easily when we talk, because you know code. You're seeing the matrix. You're like Neo right now with all the little ones and zeros floating by my head, and you can tell what's going on. That's incredible. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So what was the spark then that started the bend toward MindFix? Because there had to be something in there that was like, I either don't want to do this anymore, or I want to do this more. There has to be some kind of fork in the road, right?
It wasn't a spark. It was actually no, it was a spark. It was a little piece of electricity. So around like year 13, 14, I started to realize I don't want to do this the rest of my life. Like the industry is getting commoditized. There's websites out there you can build a website for like $19.99 a month with Squarespace or GoDaddy or something like that. Something that we used to bill $50,000 for, you can get for $5,000. Everybody coming out of school can code a website. It's just the commodity. I did not want to do it. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I didn't know what else to do. I was like, what else can I do? This is all I've ever known. This is all I know. And I spent years trying to go and kind of figure out, what's my unique ability and take tests and read books and all that stuff, and never figured anything out. So what happened, fast forward, is one day, I was in my mid-30s. I was training for a mountain bike stage race, like this big 6-day epic stage race at 10,000 feet, and was super fit and crushing it, even though I was kind of miserable at work because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I stepped off my bike and there was a twinge of electricity. I didn't hurt it. I didn't sprain it, nothing. And the very long story short is that became slowly over the next week, over the next month, over the next year, chronic pain that then spread through my body. Wow. I went to massage therapists. I went to chiropractors. I went to, acupuncturists. Then I started to go see some doctors. Then I went to go see an orthopedic surgeon and get MRIs and x-rays. And then I started to go to different doctors, and everybody's just like, there's nothing wrong with you. Fast forward 2 years later, I'm sitting in a brain surgeon's office going, why am I in so much pain? And why can nobody help me? And everybody just shrugged going, don't know. So basically it was 2.5 years of increasing depression, anxiety, misery, more pain. No one can help me. No one can help me. No one can help me. Spending all my money on doctors and nothing ever changing. It was just a hamster wheel of absolute misery. I cut myself off from friends. I couldn't be active. I didn't like what I was doing at work. And being active is my life. It's where I got my joy. So I cut myself off from people.
Working out and stuff? Like you just stopped exercising?
I couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it hurt too bad.
It hurt. I could go every once in a while, but I'd be in pain. And then that would just remind me of like how there was no hope and no one could help me. And I just remember for 2 years, the feeling was I'm broken and no one can help me. So as that increased and, one day turned into 1 week, turned into 1 month, turned into 1 year, turned into 2 years, and I'm waking up every day on this Groundhog's Day of life, of misery, I just got so anxious and so depressed. I was fully suicidal. I was like, I don't want to live. I don't want to live like this, and I can't live like this. And so I started to see therapists and like kind of, spiritual people to try and then fix my mind, let alone my body. And so my whole life, everything changed in a different direction one day when I was sitting on this couch in one of the therapist's office. And she's like, your pain is not like level 10 pain. It's considering what some people go through, your pain is not excruciating. You're in a lot of pain because of how you see the world. It's the lens through which you're seeing the world. Your lens is dirty. Your mental lens is so dirty. And the programming that's running your mind is so skewed and kind of fragmented that it's your experience of the world that's crushing you. It's not what's actually going on. And I thought that was really fascinating. So I was like, well, what do you mean? Tell me more about this. And she said, the way you think, you experience life, what you believe is so skewed. It's keeping you in this negative loop. For example, you believe if you're not working, that means you're lazy. You believe that your entire worth as a human being is related to how much you achieve. You believe how deserving you are is based on how much money you make. And if you're walking around with that and you're hurt and you can't do a lot, your sense of self-worth is dropping. You feel like you're worthless. You feel like you're lazy. It's the cycle of just continually beating yourself up, hating yourself. And I was like, yes. Mm-hmm. Now, what do we do about it? What do we do about this? Right. And she's like, just come and see me 3 times a week instead of once a week. And she didn't really know the answer. She's like, we'll explore this over the upcoming years. And I was like, I don't have years to live, woman. Like, I don't have years.
So she knew what was wrong, but she didn't even have the answer of, like, she realized what was happening. She just couldn't figure out what to do about it. Like,
it was like, let's explore it for a few more years. We'll explore this. And I was like, I am an entrepreneur. I need answers now. I don't have years. I need something fast.
Yeah.
So I remember that day I walked out of her office and I stood on her little red concrete porch and I said, I am going to figure out how to change this lens, how I see the world, my experience, my thoughts, what I believe to be true on a deep level that nobody else has ever been able to change in like 25 years of therapy that I've been going to. I am going to figure this out. And so it was that day that kind of set me off on this path of, I'm going to figure this out for myself because I keep going to everybody else and nobody else can seem to help me. So I'm taking it on me.
Yeah.
And so I set off and I studied the work of a lot of people. I studied, like the work we do today is based on a lot of the work of Morty Lefko, of Ryan Goodman, of, we've got people in the RRT world, in the in the progressive mental alignment world. We have so many different modalities.
Yeah. It's like, it's what I love about what you do is it's so deep and holistic, and you can feel the wisdom and experience, even with people who might be newer in your world or newer in your, like everyone I've ever went through who's been with your program and taught to them, you can feel the weight of this work that you guys have done to align this and fix these belief problems. The lens problem, I guess, is what you're calling it right now, basically. It's pretty amazing. You can feel all that work that you've done, you know?
Yeah. And we've learned a lot over the years because certain things don't work for other people. And we're finding the more we've failed with certain people and it didn't work, or things we've been able to take every failure and then be able to figure out why it didn't work for this person or what they needed additionally. And so that's how it's kind of blossomed and grown over time, is through experience and through our challenging clients. We've been able to blend in different modalities to the original work that I ended up studying, which was
amazing.
So
your background
powerful.
Actually did this though. Like it's amazing. You still studied psychology, like something innate in you drew you this way. And I don't know if you resisted it necessarily, but just there was a different path that happened that kind of forced you down it.
Yeah.
But it's funny how we go back to that. Like I always laugh because people are like, how did you figure out how to podcast so fast? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That was really hard back in 2012. And it's because I was my senior year in high school. I ran the news show and I learned how to edit. I learned how to do all these machines and things. And and that was how I got my foot in coaching football, because I could edit highlight videos and stuff. So people would let me do it and be coached at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's like, then you go 10 years later and you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, that skill was aligned and in me for when I needed it. And it's like, how does that even happen sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
I want to ask you about the beliefs real quick before we go forward. Cause like, I think when I think of you, one, I love you. And that's what I think of. Like, I like family, but like when I think about you, I always think of this belief, because Jocelyn, as I was watching her go through the MindFix program, and I watched her, I remember when she got rid of the first belief, because Jocelyn was experiencing physical pain from her depression. And it was these lenses, the way she was experiencing the world. Right. And when she would say, I released a belief, like my brain couldn't even wrap around that concept. Right. But when I just heard you explain it, like my worth is valued to how much money I make, or something like that. I think that's what you said. Like, do you find these beliefs are like that, to like where people, when they're having these belief problems, or they're having this pain, or they can't get past something, or they're stuck, do you find they're tethering to something outside of themselves? and like that belief is like attaching to something, and like if that one thing they're tethered to is disrupted, that's when the whole world falls down. Like I know, like for money, that's like if you don't make enough money, all of a sudden your worth is crushed because you tethered to the money. Yeah. Right? Do you find that in when people are struggling with belief problems or pain like this?
That's such a good question. So I think the way that I want to answer it is by sharing two different ways that we found helpful when we're talking with clients about how beliefs impact them. Because it's kind of this nebulous thing about beliefs. What do I believe? How do I believe something? So what we find is if we go back to this lens metaphor, sometimes it's like, if you imagine I'm looking at something, we're both looking at a plant, that's in the corner. And I'm looking at it. You're looking at it, but you have blue glasses with blue lenses on, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I see a green plant, and you're like, it's blue. And we can get into an argument, and you're like, I see blue and it's going to impact me. I'm going to tell everybody it's blue. It's going to, it's just like you see something a certain way and you can't see it any other way. So imagine if you have a belief that's like, money is the root of all evil. If I'm not working, it means I'm lazy. If I make a mistake or fail, I'll be rejected. And it is that strong, and it's a lens, and you can't see the world in any other way. And I'm sitting here without that lens, right? Without the blue glasses. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if someone else is trying to convince you. It is so strong in how you see the world. It's like lenses over your eyes. So when you get rid of a way of thinking or a line of programming or a belief or a way of thought pattern, it's like coming along and taking those lenses off of somebody. And suddenly they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to stop telling people it's blue. I'm going to stop, put like all of these different things happen and scatter because you see the world in a fundamentally different way. Yeah. And what we've realized, and this is the big realization and how I like to describe it, is that when we have a way of thinking, when we have a belief, money is the root of all evil. And pro tip, when we believe something, it's not like 100% of us believes it. Some of us go, I know it's not really, and another part is, but it is. It's usually
the messy parliament in our head is like trying to vote on which one, and the majority is winning, and sometimes in the wrong way, right?
Yeah. It's like a small part of us believes it or is holding on to it. Up here, we may not believe something, but down here, we kind of do. Yeah. So what ends up happening is that when, I'm going to draw a little diagram really quickly here. Like if we have a certain way of thinking, okay.
So we got a box.
We got a box with some X's in it. Yep. So what happens is if I have money as the root of all evil, that's going to keep all of my thoughts and behaviors and feelings like in this box. I can't, all the other ways of thinking, like I'm going to make more money. I'm going to grow my team. I'm going to become a millionaire. These are
X's outside of the box that I can't access, basically. Yeah.
Those aren't options for you. So a belief keeps you locked into only being able to be a certain way, think a certain way, act a certain way. So what happens is when we can find these problems and challenges and get rid of them, and we can kind of get rid of this boundary that's holding on to your life, suddenly you can still act in all the ways you were before, but you have access to other ways of thinking and being and feeling that just you didn't have access to. So it creates more possibility in life.
Let me, and I'm going to be totally transparent here, and I'm just going to talk about one that we released. Okay. So like, I saw this happen with Jocelyn before I participated, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Which was a pretty cool thing, because I was like, I don't know. I kind of came in like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe what was happening in Jocelyn. I was like, what's going on here? But it's kind of skeptical. Like, can you really just take the glasses off? Come on. Right. And just change your mindset. And we were talking one night, and I was having lots of conflict with Jocelyn. I was having lots of, and I mean, we were uber successful. I mean, we don't lose. Like that was one of our sayings at the time, was we just don't lose, right? Like, and that might've been a part of it actually. But like when we were talking, we were kind of like looked at this belief, like what was happening. And for some reason I know the reason, I'll talk about that, but I had attached myself to a belief that I am big and loud and overpowering, and I am a force of nature, and I can will anything to happen.
Yep.
Overwhelming power. Like nothing can withstand in our wake kind of like belief, right?
Yeah.
And this had produced a lot of positive results in my life. I'm not saying this was necessarily always a bad thing.
Yep.
But it was extreme. But what you showed me, you're like, wait a minute. But what happens when you go into your spouse with overwhelming power? What happens when you go at your kids with overwhelming power? And what happens when you do this? And we went back, and of course this goes deeper. But we found the place where this came from. Was I grew up in a house with four other dudes, and and two of my brothers were grown men. The only way I could survive in that environment was I had to stick my chest out, thump it, and have overwhelming power to force my way up to the table. When Erin, I can't explain this on a podcast. When I discovered that, and you said to me, I think we worded it like this: I have to use overwhelming force to have power.
Yeah, the way to have power is to use overwhelming force.
Yes, right. And then you basically, I remember Trish was sitting in there too, and you just looked at me and said, no, it wasn't Trish, it was Nate. He was in there.
Yep.
And you just looked at me and said, there's other ways to get power. And my mind like shot into the upper atmosphere all of a sudden. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's just one tool in the toolbox. And I'm going to cry. I'm actually going to cry in a minute, because like when that happened, what happened after that, and probably has been, I guess that was about a year ago, maybe a year or two, year and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
What's happened in that year since, I can communicate with my wife, my business. I am more loved now by our audience and the people around us than I was ever before that moment. And like, even my relationship with my children, like I can literally stop in any situation and not go at them, like not demand that they do the thing that I do or that I want them to do, because I can like, well, I'm trying to understand them. And I have all these other tools in my toolbox now. And like, it just feels so different. But it's so funny when you say you take the lens off and you move it. It really feels like that when you realize most of the problems are these beliefs. And do you see that with other people too? Like it just snaps and happens like that? Like,
yeah. And I think what I've been learning is the nuances. Like it works so well and so effectively for so many people. And then we have a small percentage of people where it's not the right answer or it's not the right solution yet. Like there's some other things in the way, like, deep trauma, something going on in the body, deep psychological trauma or freeze responses that we need to work through. And sometimes, so it's so powerful and so permanent. And I used to come at it with this, like, it's everything approach. And I've really been humbled over the years by finding the small percentage of people where it didn't work perfectly for, and I had to start learning to be able to discern when it's the right answer for most people most of the time, and when to be able to tell someone, hey, you need something else first, or hey, we need to do something else first.
I think that's what's amazing about what you do and your people do, because you have this patience and this wisdom approach to going at. And I think that most people like that listen to this show, like experts, authors, entrepreneurs, people out there doing it, also look for, I think we look for magic solutions a lot because we are entrepreneurs. We do want things to work right now. But what I've learned more, even from hanging around you, is this concept of doing the work and finding other solutions. And, as I've peeled the onion back lately now as well, like I was like, well, if I was doing that, what else am I doing? Like, so you find all these other things, and entrepreneurs are looking for the quick fix. They're looking for this, that, or the other. Really, it's like, we get one thing out of the way and elevate, get the next thing out of the way and elevate until you're in this system of you can get things out of the way to elevate. That's really the goal, instead of I've got to fix this one particular problem.
Yeah. I think so. The beautiful visual that I've been sharing with people that I've found so useful is that of a river. Like if we're all, especially as entrepreneurs, these rivers with flowing and energy and momentum, and we're trying to go in a certain direction, what ends up happening is we have these boulders that kind of come down, and sediment that kind of clogs things up over the years through difficult experiences, through traumas, through challenges through failed relationships and things that impact us over time. And our rivers get kind of filled with boulders. And what so many coaching programs or personal development books or weekend seminars, or go do it, you are powerful kind of stuff. Like so much of that stuff is trying to teach people how to navigate the boulders and buy a better kayak and go to the gym and be stronger to push through the current and deal with all the crap that kind of comes into our rivers of life. And what I want to invite people to think about is the simplicity and elegance and power and efficacy of subtraction. What if instead of trying to cope with and deal with all these boulders and sediment and the bridges and the dams and all the things that clog up your energy and your life force, what if we can come in with a crane once and pull out some of these boulders and a shovel and kind of dig away some of the sediment so that you can go back to being in more flow and more momentum? What if it's actually all about subtraction and getting rid of things instead of needing to learn how to do different types of meditation and then needing to learn how to do this and that, and then you need all of the things that you're supposed to do? What if we could just simplify and pull out what's in your way, and you could experience like infinitely more ease? And that's kind of a different way of thinking for a lot of us.
Another thing that I was dealing with, I guess back in January, it's like, I think when was I out there? I don't remember. But another thing I was dealing with was I was just really struggling with taking care of myself. And this belief crushes most entrepreneurs. It's so funny. Like you got to run your job. You got to run your business. You got to take care of your family, your kids. You got to do that. And I had not even realized that over time, I had created a belief that if I take care of myself, other people suffer. And that is when I say it out loud now, it feels so insane to say that. Like it feels like narcissistic almost. Like I am the superhero, and if I don't show up, but I did really feel that way. Like I would actually physically hurt when I would go toward working out. Like if I was going to go to lift weights or something beforehand, I swear I was getting narcoleptic. My body would immediately try to go to sleep. So sometimes I would even just go fall asleep instead of go work out, And it was just so crazy to even, not crazy, maybe it is the right word. Crazy, it felt crazy now looking back at it, because not taking care of myself was actually what could hurt people, because then I wouldn't be here, or I wouldn't be around, or I wouldn't be able to take care of my responsibilities. But I remember releasing that belief, and I thought, that's just not true. Like that one was different than the other one, because the other one felt like, okay, I see why I felt that way. I totally see. This one was just like, this is not true. And I have so decided to believe this that it's hurting me. And man, when you let that go, all the world's possibilities, it's like that subtraction. Like I took that out of the way, and of course I had time to work out. Of course it made me a better person. Of course it made me feel better. Of course it didn't hurt anybody to turn my phone off for 30 minutes. But it wasn't because I added workouts or tried to run farther. It was just, I let that part go. And once I let that part go, it like came back in, So let me piggyback off that, because why do you do this then? What you do is so important, and I believe in it so much. Like, why, after you figured this out for yourself, did you create this amazing thing we call MindFix now that goes out and helps other people? Because Jocelyn, let me tell you how I found you. Jocelyn heard you randomly on a podcast, I think, or something like that. Found you, heard your story, and she was like, that's me. And then she went to your website, which was, I'm sure, coded professionally by you. But she read your thing, and when she goes, look at this. And I read your thing, and I was like, that is the best copy I've ever seen on a website. That is some amazing copywriting right there. Who is this person? I want to know her just because she's a good copywriter. And then Jocelyn goes down this, but like what made you put yourself out there? And because a lot of us, if you were freed by this, when you figured it out, you could have went 100 different directions when you found that freedom. Mm-hmm. Why are you now helping other high level people get unstuck, remove these blocks, and move forward?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. It goes back to that feeling that I experienced over and over for those two and a half, 3 years where I was in that pain phase, where it was just that feeling of like, nobody can help me. There's no one. I am totally alone. I am completely broken. and nobody can help me. And I remember just like, I would have given anything for someone to have shown up and been like, there's a different way to experience this. Like, I also like need to make it very clear before anybody out there I am not a chronic pain specialist. Like I want to make it exquisitely clear that I do not specialize. I'm not a doctor and I don't specialize in chronic pain.
I only bring that up. I only bring that up because you had that experience.
Totally. Yeah. And several people have, where when we address the mental aspect, a lot of our physical pain goes away, but it's definitely not my expertise. But I just remember this mental and physical agony and going, if someone could just help me. And so when I started to experience change on the side of my agency, I was like, well, I'll help a couple friends out. And the results were so fast and so mind blowing. And so just, I was like, well, maybe if I work with them for 3 months, and like within a month, people are like, I've been going to therapy for 20 years and this is gone. And the amount of personal fulfillment and joy that I got in being able to help another human experience less suffering was so phenomenal that I looked at my agency where, we could do a massive project over 6 months and coordinate 80 people, not 80, but 20 people on this project. And it would be, hey, thanks for the nice site if we crushed it. And here I am, I've got people in tears and spouses saying, hey, thanks for, saving our marriage. And hey, I've been working on this in therapy and it never went away. And I felt so honored to be able to help people out of what I knew was just misery and suffering, that I was like, I get to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And it's an honor.
Yeah. Who do you serve mostly? Like, I know you serve a lot of different people.
Yeah.
I know we come at it a lot from the entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of people that I've met as being a part of, your community of people who subscribe to MindFix and things like that. And I get that a lot of them are entrepreneurial. Seems like a lot of high achievers. Who do you feel like comes to you a lot, and why do you think they have why do these mindset issues hold them back like this?
Yeah. Well, we definitely specialize in working with entrepreneurs, leaders, CEOs, people who have vision and know that if they invest in themselves and they work on themselves, the ROI is going to be exponential. They're usually going to be able to make more money, be a better spouse, be a better parent, feel better. Like, they understand that investing in themselves is going to have a ripple effect, like tens, hundreds, thousands of dollars, in a very short period of time. So even though we say entrepreneurs, CEOs, leaders, we'll work with anybody who's like, I want to get unstuck. I want to change. And I know how much of an impact this is going to have on me and the people around me. So the reason why we focus on entrepreneurs and leaders is because one of the things that they come to us with, like it's baked into their system, is they typically don't have a victim mindset. They're like, I know that my life is the way it is because of me. I know that if I change, my life changes, my life experience changes. Whereas when I first started and I was like, I'll work with any human on the planet, what I found is some of my friends who had more of a employee mindset, or just like life happens to me. The problems are because of my spouse. If I didn't have bad kids, then I'd be happy. And everything was external. This victim, life happens to me. Like that is one of the things that just to get someone out of that takes a long time. And so when we work with people who have an internal locus of control and take ownership of their life, and they're like, I know that if I change, everything changes. That's the kind of person that we can help see amazing results, because they get to focus on them instead of saying everything's everybody else's fault.
Yeah, it's just a different part of it. Like, some people are trapped externally. I have a person in my life right now who is tethered to the external. Yeah. Like, every circumstance is the reason, right? And if the circumstance doesn't change, nothing can change. Instead of, I'm the circumstance.
Yes.
I'm the only common denominator in everything I do every day.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where you kind of have to like approach it from. You know, like
exactly.
if you don't, you're trapped. Where do you think well, I don't want to say where you think, but like, where do these beliefs come from? Like I always wonder why, like there'll be times in my life where I'm just rolling and then all of a sudden something will hit a wall.
Mm.
And, you know, like you were on this trail and you felt this like electricity and it grew into this, like did some like, and you were doing something that it wasn't even related to this thing, maybe, you know, like where do these beliefs come from that we're trapped in? And like we always think it's the circumstance or it's this time of life or something happened right now that's what caused this feeling, but do they come from other places? Like where do these beliefs come from that hold us back?
Yeah So it's important to know it's not the event that creates our experience. It's how we perceive events. And the simple example, like my mentor always used to share, was like, if you and I are having a conversation in a hallway and Susie walks by us down the hall and I look over at her and she doesn't say anything, right? And I have a belief or a line of programming in my head that says I'm not likable. People don't like me. Ooh. You know, if I see Susie walk by and she doesn't say anything, to me, my lens, how I'm going to experience that event is proof that she doesn't like me, proof I'm not likable, proof, like there it is. You can see it. Look, it just happened. If you, though, don't have that same belief or that line of programming in your head, you're going to experience the exact same thing, Susie walking by, and you're going to go, what? She's probably just having a bad day. Or, I wonder if she saw me. Or, I wonder if she's okay. Or, what just happened? You're going to have a totally different experience. You're going to see it totally differently. And you're not going to feel bad about yourself. You're going to have more energy to go on with your day. I'm going to be sitting in self-doubt and like, I'm feeling bad about myself. That's going to impact the next phone call I'm on and drain energy. Simple event. Literally someone walking by us can totally change the trajectory of our days based on what we believe to be true or not, because it's going to change how we experience the event. Yeah. So when you say, where does this programming, where do these thoughts, these lenses or glasses that we end up having, where do they come from? Three primary sources. Number one is severe trauma, right? So if I'm going through life, you know, I've worked with women and maybe they've had really severe sexual assaults in college or afterwards. Suddenly you can go through life and then you can have some severe traumas and suddenly you come out of it with like, no, this is how the world is. Men aren't safe. Yeah. Right. Because of trauma, there's so much emotion and there's so much energy, and it doesn't take much, you know, that something small can then lock you into this is how the world is moving forward. So trauma is one. And trauma, this is something I feel like I'm learning. Trauma is also like, it's not just a sexual assault. It's not, it could be what we would say is a small trauma, but like it just imprinted on your brain, right? Like one person punched you, and it wasn't even a real fight, but that somehow that plants in your brain that people group is not safe or something like that. You see what I'm saying? Trauma is an interesting word because here's the thing that most people don't get. Something that oftentimes we have a lot of traumatic experiences in childhood and we don't think they're traumatic because if they happen to us now as an adult, it would be nothing. Yes, you know, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, yes. It perceived insignificant to us, but back then that was a trauma. Like you fell in the pool and someone pulled you out, but you thought you were going to drown and die. But you were in for 2 seconds. You don't even think about it. The party keeps going. Yes, you could be lost in the mall and be like, oh my God, I'm lost. I'm never getting home. Mom doesn't know where I am. And you could go through absolute code red panic. I'm going to die. Meanwhile, mom is like, oh, there they are. Oh yeah, I got to go get them, right? And it might be 15 seconds. But to a child, when you can't take care of yourself and your survival depends on someone else, a yelling parent, a parent yelling at you could be terrifying and represent withdrawal of love and I'm not going to be okay. Whereas now as an adult, your parent yells at you and you're like, what are you? Stop it. Yeah. Stop that. Whereas to a child, that can be deeply traumatic and scary because a child can't take care of themselves. So when you say trauma, all sorts of things can be terrifying to kids and can get locked into memory and really impact us. Whereas if it happened to us as an adult, it's no big deal because we have power and autonomy. Amazing. Over our lives. So going back to the three things that, you know, where does this stuff come from? Trauma, childhood experiences. So much of what we are programmed and how we experience the world is locked in by the time we're 6 or 7. And it's just in our subconscious, and it's locked in based on what we saw modeled, how we experienced the world, what our parents did, how they interacted with us, how they punished us, how they praised us. We pick up, oh, this is how the world works. We're in these little snow globes, and this is how the world works. This is how you get praise. This is how you get love. This is what punishes, when you get punished. This is when you get pain. And then we take that out and go, that's how the world works. And we just assume like whatever we experienced in childhood is how the rest of the world works. And then the other beliefs that we experience, or the programming, the number 3, is when things have happened repeatedly over and over and over to us, and there's lots of repetition in our life, that locks in. Usually we go, you know what? This is how I think about the world. So,
and that stuff you might even realize, like you're just habitually doing the same thing over and over, and all of a sudden you get stuck in a loop where you can't like escape the loop, basically.
Or seeing the same thing over and over. Like if you went to a certain type of, Catholic school, for example, and over every year, the teachers were super strict. You might come up with you know what? I think authority figures are awful. I hate authority, and just because there was so much repetition from it as you went through it.
Or if like your first 5 or 6 bosses were bad, you might think, well, there's no possible way a good boss could ever exist.
Exactly.
Right. And you just like, I just accept it that people can abuse me and do whatever they want. And I don't get to have any say in my life because that's the way it is.
Yes, totally. Incredible. Yep.
So what do you think like the benefits are? I've been having a lot of conversations lately, especially with like Jocelyn and other people our age, like in the 40s, our 40s, right? Our peer group, and some people younger than me. Because I think that people in their 40s are starting to realize this. Like it feels like the people that I know in their 30s and 20s are much better at addressing this and then I look at our older generations where, back in the 80s, everything was secret and you had to wear your best Sunday clothes and you had to look good and nobody was allowed to know your problems. Yeah. And if anything ever went wrong, you had to hit pause I feel like that, like what are the huge benefits that we need to all realize that if we would just do the work, like what are the huge benefits for doing this kind of special work? Because we know we're supposed to go to the gym. We know we're not supposed to eat sugar. We know we're supposed to do all these things. But this is, to us, is in the last year of our life has been the greatest discovery probably in our life, is that we can actually decide not to believe things. What are the benefits of that for somebody who's going to get into it? It's scary. This is scary. I'm telling you, a lot of people, this is fearful right now of, I got to confront my beliefs, Erin. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And it's not just beliefs. It's confronting like fears and what terrifies us. And this is a poignant question because as we move through life and we peel away these layers, oftentimes we get to the sense of safety and other stuff starts bubbling up and it's like, okay, here's the next round. And I went through something literally this morning where I had been having some weird stuff with like food sensitivities and reactions to things I was eating. And it brought up all this terror and fear. And I'm like, I run a mindset company and I'm walking around in my house shaking, like what's going on? And I had to sit down and use all these processes that I know about and turn around and almost like in a nightmare, like turn around and face the fear and like look right at it and go into it. And so when you ask me what the benefit is, I had been walking around shaking and people are like, should you be on anti-anxiety medication? Are you able to work? And trying to push down all of this terror. And when I turned around, spent an hour doing the work, I feel like a new human. Mm-hmm. I feel like I can connect with love. I'm excited to work. There's no more procrastination. Like when you push through some of these issues and clear out some of these boulders that kind of show up in your river, the experiences you get to live again. You don't have to push down. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to fight through and numb yourself out with drugs or food or working out or working in your business where you have to numb yourself. You get to actually be alive and experience joy again. Because when you don't face this stuff, it's painful. And then you have to try and numb it.
And the world shrinks. That's what I now know, looking back at like before last year when we were going through a lot of stuff, like I realize now how how fast the world can shrink around you when these things are like, I had an incident the other day that was very similar. What I've become better at is doing this faster, like turning around and facing the fear and just saying no faster. Because I can actually feel myself like in a room, and now it feels like the world is collapsing on top of me. And just like I had a stressful situation with one of our kids, my mom and my dad put in the hospital for COVID, like business people, something went wrong with our payment processor, like all these things started shrinking in on top of me. And these weird little thoughts in my head are like, are you even good enough to be a parent? Or who are you to go and, take care of your parents or whatever? Like all these things, like who are you to lead? Like, and it was just a moment of like, no, I have to stop and I have to turn around and face it. Like, it's so funny you say it that way, because that's exactly what I did. It was like this week. And like, but it's funny because when you realize what's happening, there's programming, there's belief. Is this the real way I should look at the world right now and experience it? You have this superpower almost, like where you can like stop it from happening, stop it when it's happening. And like, you don't have to just sit and take it like, oh, life is happening to me, I guess. And I'm crushed by the inner workings of the world. Like you actually can stop the whole thing. It's incredible. Like when you say it that way. And I think there's people listening right now going, I don't believe you. Like there's people are like, no, the world is crushing me. My back does hurt. I am stressed out and I have no agency here. And that's just not true. It's just completely untrue. And when you realize that, you can have a new truth and you get to make up whatever you want. So,
yeah.
All right. I could talk to you for hours, and but I know we both have appointments coming up. And but I just want to say to everybody out there, like, I don't do this on my podcast. I don't ringingly endorse people. And I did bring you on the show just so I could selfishly spend an hour with you. But me and Jocelyn do love you, and like what you're doing is really, really super important. And it's some of the most important work I've ever came across in my 43 years on this earth. And I do highly recommend that everybody check you out. Tell them where they can check you out and where they can learn more about this, because I know there's people out there suffering that don't have to. And if they would just check you out, they probably wouldn't. So where can people go to find you?
Yeah. So I'm the only, I think I'm the only Erin Pheil on Facebook. And I usually post there at least a couple times a week with stories and updates and, posts about clients and successes and what's possible. So if you want to follow me on Facebook, I'm Erin Pheil. And then honestly, we have a ton of information over on our website, mindfixgroup.com. We've got a free 1-hour training. We've got loads of case studies. We have a results page that you can scroll through and spend an hour on with videos. And then below the videos, there's notes and the client's words. So you can see what's actually possible. Because that's one of the things that I know I had wanted when I was suffering, is like, I don't feel like there's any hope. And so to be able to see what's possible for normal human beings, just like you, spend some time on the results page, case studies, free training, lots of information there. And then if it seems like something that someone is interested in learning more about or exploring, or someone's ready to get unstuck, there's a big green apply button at the top. You fill out some question, or you answer some questions, and you'll get a 45-minute call with me where we can talk about all of your challenges, issues, map out a plan for you so you can get unstuck and out of your own way.
And I get to come and see you soon to get unstuck in a very big way. So yes. The work is never done, my friend, and we get to work together soon. So I'm pumped to see you. Fun. I've been to Colorado more times now than I ever did in 42 years since I met you. I just keep going back because I get to work with the MindFix crew, and we get to hang out, and we get to destroy beliefs. And I'll end with this. This is no lie. This is I think it was about a year and a half ago when we first started doing MindFix stuff. This year we're going to probably double our revenue. Just because there is just not as much junk to deal with. So we get to go make money and be successful. It's pretty amazing. So thank you, Erin Pheil. I love you.
Love you too.
All right, guys, that wraps up my interview with Erin Pheil. Man, I could have talked to Erin for 4 or 5 hours. It is a great honor to call her a friend. And I do highly recommend, if you are struggling with any kind of false beliefs, if you feel stuck in your life, if you feel like the world's closing in, you got anxiety, you got fears, you got anything you're dealing with, but you've got a big vision and you want to remove those blocks, you want to remove those beliefs, and you want to take action and move forward in your life, in your entrepreneur journey, you want to head over to MindFix Group and you want to check out Erin's program so that you can start your process, start your progress toward recovering and getting over those false beliefs. Untether yourself from these circumstances that are holding you back and live life on your terms again. And if you love the Shane Sam Show, man, if you enjoy the guests, if you enjoy the conversations that I have every single week, let me know. There's a real easy way to do that. Head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a 5-star review. Tell me who your favorite guest is. Tell me why you love the show. Man, that motivates me. That fires me up. That gets me excited to keep bringing you great guests and great content every single week. If you don't listen on an Apple product, you can head over to Spotify, give us a follow, download a few episodes, and hey, why not share it on social media and tell a friend? And, people always ask me, man, what do you do for your job? Well, I say I'm a podcaster, but my career is changing lives for a living. And I do that over at flippedlifestyle.com. I help people just like you start, build, and grow online businesses. I teach people how to make money online from home. And I would love to help you do that as well. You can find out everything about my programs over at shanesams.com or at flippedlifestyle.com as well. And don't forget to check out the Flipped Lifestyle podcast as well. That's my other show. Every single week, I help a real member from my community start, build, and grow an online business, celebrate their success, and then we air that coaching call for everybody out there so you can learn as well. You can also follow me on social media at FlippedLS, that's Flipped Lifestyle, or you can follow me over on Twitter at Shane_Sams. Go send me a direct message. Give me a follow so you can keep up with everything we're doing here at the Shane Sam Show. That's all the time we have for this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Till I see you again. Be consistent, be prolific, be relentless. Cast your stone out upon the waters and cause many ripples. We'll see you then.